Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about string manipulations. We've talked about string manipulations in the past. Today we're going to take it to the next level. We need to talk about the idea of immutable objects. This definition comes straight from python.org and their glossary, and essentially it just means that a immutable object is anything that has a fixed value. That means that once you've made an immutable object, you cannot change the value in the program. Here it says that immutable objects include numbers, strings, and tuples. You can never edit a string once you've made it. You can only make a copy of it, modify it, but then once it's stored in memory, you can never change it again. In the past, we've talked about the string method .lower, so we're going to use that to kind of explore this idea. Here, I've created an object labeled text, and the value is learning Python is fun and engaging. Then I'm using that object, text, I'm lowercasing it, and I'm storing that with the label lowercase underscore text. If I run this code, you'll see that both of these print out. Using the .lower method on text does not change it. And that's because, again, strings are immutable. Before saving it in memory, it edits that string and then saves it in the lowercase version. And that's why down here we have access to both. We can do this in a slightly different way. If we do it this way, when I print out the object with the label text, you'll see that I get the lowercase version. But this string here with a capital L and a capital P still exists in memory. It's just that we reuse the label text. And so we don't have access to this original string anymore, but it still exists in memory. Now, why would you want to do that? Here we have just a little sample code. It's asking the user to confirm if they want to continue. If the user enters in yes, then we say, okay, let's move on. Otherwise, we say, okay, quitting the program now. But what happens if the user types in yes with a capital Y and we're checking with a lowercase y? Well, you can see that Python does not see these two strings as equal. Case matters in Python. One way that you can get around that is by taking the user input. Even if they type in an uppercase y, we can use the .lower to convert it to lowercase, and then you'll see that we have it as true. When you do this, you have two options. One option is to do the lower method directly in the if statement, or the second option is to do the .lower method directly after the input. My personal preference is to use option number 2 because I think that this is a little bit easier to read than this line up here. This is totally personal preference though, and if you like option number 1, feel free to do it. The next method that we're going to talk about today is strip. As you could probably guess by its name, it literally will strip off characters from the beginning and end of a string. Notice that unlike the .lower method, .strip actually takes arguments inside of the parentheses. So when you use .strip, you have to tell it which characters you want to strip. So here, if I run this code, you'll see that text used to have X's at the beginning and the end, and the strip method has removed those X's. It doesn't matter how many X's there are, you'll see that it will still strip off all of them. One thing to be aware of though, is it will only strip it off, it is exactly at the end. Notice that when I try to strip off the X characters on this one, you'll see that there's still the exclamation point at the end, not an X character. And so all of these are going to stay no matter what. One way to get around that is you can always add multiple characters into your method. Here we're stripping both an exclamation point and an X character, and you'll see that we get just the string hello. Two more very similar methods are the lstrip and rstrip. As you could probably guess from their name, lstrip removes characters only from the left-hand side or the beginning of the string, and rstrip strips off characters from the right-hand side or the end of a string. Just like we saw in the first example of this confirmation, if the user types in a capital Y, it's not equivalent. Here, if the user is really excited and they type in yes and they put an exclamation point at the end, this conditional is going to be false. And even though they typed in yes, it's going to quit the program. After we lowercase it here on line 1, then we're going to reuse that label, reassign confirm to be the original confirm.strip, and we're going to remove any punctuation just in case. A really nice way to do this, though, is with the idea of chaining. Because strings are immutable and every string method will return a brand new object, you can chain these together. And this is called chaining because we are calling the methods one after the next, just like links in a chain. So here I do dot lower first, and then I do dot strip. Here's another example of chaining, and in this case, we're going to get the words. Dot split, if you will remember, will split up a string in whitespace and return a list of those. So this is slightly different than the newbie byte where we first learned about dot split, because now that final word engaging has been stripped of the exclamation point. Let's consider that you have a program where you want to get the length of words. That exclamation point there is not part of the word engaging, it's part of the sentence overall. So if we're just interested in the links of the words, we can chain together some nice methods here. We can lowercase it, we can R strip it, and then we can split it into words. And then using the list indexing that we learned way back at the beginning of the newbies, we can get something like the second word and the last word. And you'll see it right here. Python has 6 letters and engaging has 8 letters. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding how to manipulate strings using Python. Good luck on today's byte.